Hi everyone, Dom Famularo again for the Artist Series at a Distance. In the Sessions panel, what we do is we have a chance to bring in so many great artists from around the world. So I want you all to welcome the Reyes family. This is fantastic. We have WALFREDO Sr., we have WALFREDO Jr. Wally, thank you so much. We've got Danny Reyes that's here. Fantastic, Danny, thanks for joining us. And Lillian, it's fantastic to see you. I look forward to meeting you in person someday. This is absolutely fantastic to see you all here. Listen, I want to start by saying I have heard each of you perform, and the depth of music that you all deliver, every single performance is at such a high standard. So I'm going to start, Wally, I'm going to start with you. Where do you think that came from, this passion of being able to play and give it your all every concert?
My dad there installed a big music route, and a very musical family and friends coming to the house. So from there on, we each of us, Danny and Liliana, they can speak for themselves, but I know that it was in the air and we decided to grab it and start studying. And from there on, we started playing professionally and we haven't stopped.
Well, not only you haven't stopped, all of you are on fire more so than ever before. Now, I'm going to get to WALFREDO Sr. in a moment. Danny, where did it start for you? What did you sense in the family of hearing music all the time?
The initial give it everything that you have came from my father. He was just a very driven type of a person when he went up on stage. And stage just wasn't when you get up to the place where people see you. It's from the moment almost like you leave your house. You're on. And when you're on, you're on. It's like the cameras go on, whether you're on a theater, stage, a symphony, a Las Vegas show, a lounge, whatever it is, you're on. And as I progressed, I realized that people pay good money and people come out to see you. People should get everything that you have delivered, given to them in order to feel like that they're being communicated to in the best way possible. So I can't see any other way than giving it everything that you have.
Well, what a great family constitution that you all have. I want to go now to Liliana. You sing so great, you play percussion, and you really give it your all. Where did you feel that came from?
I think there was never a plan B for me. My mom used to work in the music industry and then my dad working in the music industry. It was so normal and it just felt very fluid. In my household, it was more like, well, music was kind of like are you going to be a doctor or an attorney? It was just like, well, you're going to be a musician. And it was very normalized. So I think there was just never a plan B. And once I realized, well, you can make a living doing this if you have the business aspect to it and then the work ethic to it. That's how it came about for me. And I grew up dancing and singing, and it just was a natural pathway, I think.
So where did it start for you? Did it start with dancing and singing as a youngster, and then you just kind of evolved into it?
I think so. Growing up with my dad, we used to play as kids in the studio. So that was our playtime. And then when my parents split, my mom would still take us to concerts and music was still very much in the household, and it was always through dance. And then I realized when I was in grade school, I was singing a musical, and we did it for our show and tell when you go up in front of the classroom. And I sang with my best friend, and all of a sudden the teacher just started taking me around to all the classrooms. And then that turned into the principal was like, okay, do you want to sing for the national anthem for all of our assemblies? And then I realized I was like, oh, okay, I might be good. And then it just evolved from there into musical theater, and then musical theater into drama classes. That was one of the only outlets that I had music as a child. And then I went on to study music in college.
You went to Thornton School of Music, right?
Yes.
So that must have opened you up to a whole nother level of understanding the depth of you now seeing this is my profession now.
Well, it was definitely an eye-opener because I didn't have lessons growing up as a child, and I was self-taught. So I was sitting in my room with CDs and listening to Mariah Carey and Celine Dion and Christina Aguilera and teaching myself how to sing. My mom was a single parent and she couldn't take us, the three of us, to each of our individual lessons, nor could she afford it. So now I'm at this collegiate level, sitting in the same classroom as classically trained pianists and jazz majors and all of these other amazingly talented, but also educated music theory-wise students. And I had no idea, just absolutely no idea. I got into this program. It was the program I wanted to go to. And I remember calling my dad, asking him, you need to come teach me how to read rhythm, how to do all these things, right, Dad? And you sat on my couch and we went through textbooks. And that was the cool thing about our relationship, is because my dad and I weren't close growing up as when I was a child. But when I got to college, music, I think, helped us develop our relationship. Can you agree with that?
I gotta say it now, and I didn't say it to her because I didn't want her to get a big head or anything like that. But Liliana was my best student. I realized, oh my God, like she was a vacuum cleaner. I call her that. So basically, I had just was gonna go out with Chicago for a while. I said, Lily, put the coffee pot, espresso coffee pot. And she said, I don't drink coffee. And I said, tonight you will. And I opened up the book, like it was like a USC Thornton School version of Ted Reed's Syncopation.
Yeah.
And it started with the whole note and the quarter note and the eighth note and all that. And we went through that book from 9 o'clock to like 12 or 1 o'clock until she arrived in the 60 notes and the triplets. And she was reading Syncopation in one night. And I went, okay, we got to go to bed. And then from there on, she took it until later on, you know, she got the gig with George Benson, but I'll let Liliana tell you about that. She got the gig with George Benson as a vocalist. And then George Benson said, but I want a percussionist that sings. And she said, Dad, I need to learn how to do percussion. So basically I told her, this is going to be boot camp, 8 hours a day for 2 months. And we did it. And she auditioned again as a percussionist and she got the gig.
Liliana, this was a fantastic story, Wally, too. And I got to go back down to WALFREDO Sr. I've known you a long, long time. And when it comes to the trilogy of Tito Puente, Willie Bobo, and you, the three of you pooled together to really move this Cuban intensity of percussion music to such a high level. When you look at your family at this level, how does this make you feel?
Amazing. It's like different eras. They talk about their era, what they went through, and mine was similar, but it was in 1939, 1940 in Havana. My father, he was a trumpet player. I was raised and born in a house full of musicians. I was there at the right time. I met a lot of incredible musicians in Cuba. When he decided to move to New York in 1939, I was with him all the time. So those were times of big bands. Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa, I met them all. They were all my friends. We moved to 49th Street and Hell's Kitchen. So everything was there. Bop City, Birdland, the Royal Roost. Being there, I heard people. You listen and you learn from all these greats.
It seems like that really was what was passed on, the fact that you listened and learned and allowed yourself to adapt to the sound. Listen, in New York at that time, I can only imagine how great it was. I experienced New York in the mid-'60s, and it was magic at a high level. At the time, what you're talking about, that's really when all the great, great players were there, and there was music performance everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. You went to the Capitol Theater, you saw Gene Krupa for 59 cents. 3 shows. Like for instance, I went to see Gene when he had a studio, 52nd Street near Roseland, right? I went to see Gene, and then I said, Gene, WALFREDO is, okay, you know how we ended it up? He wanted to learn how to play Cuban music. How do you do that, WALFREDO? Man, WALFREDO, do that again. Wow, that's amazing.
At what point in your life, Wally, did you realize, man, I'm going full on, this is what I'm doing?
Well, when I was 12, we were living in Puerto Rico. I was born in Cuba, raised in Puerto Rico. And when I was 12, when the rock and roll scene came in the radio, the Beatles, Stevie Wonder, Led Zeppelin, my first album I bought with my own money from mowing lawns was CTA, Chicago Transit Authority, and Cream, Disraeli Gears at Gemco. So I told my dad that I wanted lessons, but I thought that he was going to put me on drum set. But no, he put me on a pad, metronome, Buddy Rich, Henry Adler book. And about that time, we moved to Las Vegas. And when we moved to Las Vegas, I started to also play percussion and study drum set. My dad put me with Leo Camera for every Saturday, which he was the percussionist at the Hilton Hotel.
Yeah.
And later on in high school, I had a great teacher, Sam Pergola. The high school band was killer. I started working professionally when I was 16. I actually joined the union. And with my dad and all my dad's friends that he brought to the house, just like I brought friends and Liliana met when she was little, and Joseph, her brother, Joseph and Liliana, Gabriel wasn't born, when I used to bring Giovanni Hidalgo and REYES and all the drummers and percussionists to the house. My dad used to do the same thing. And from there on, before I knew it, I was working professionally at night and studying during the day. And it just never stopped.
Listen, the Chicago Transit Authority, which I was also a fan of, I mean, talk about a full circle of what you were able to experience from being inspired by them in your first album to then playing with them.
That's incredible. So one thing I have to add, because this is really funny, because my mom, Matilda, loved salsa music. In the kitchen, in the front room, she always had, whether it was the Temptations, salsa, Tito Rodriguez, Gran Combo. Then my dad was a jazz fan, as you can see. So all the bands that I heard coming from his room was like Charlie Persip, Tony Williams, Miles Davis, big band, Mel Lewis. And then on my room, it was like my record player had Cream, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix. So if I would go to the bathroom between my mom doing salsa and then Miles Davis on my dad's room and me with Jimi Hendrix, it was Jimi Hendrix with Miles Davis and a conga drummer. You know what I'm saying? And and that's why I actually have become today a conglomeration of all the styles, you know.
Well, that really goes back to those levels of influences. Danny, listen, you have played, my gosh, Stevie Winwood, Ricky Martin, Earth, Wind & Fire. You've got so many great bands that I've seen you perform with. And how did that begin for you? How did you pull all the influences that you have that level of vast array of versatility in your playing?
Everything stems from coaching, and the coaching came from our father. Growing up in the household that we had, it's just like going with your father to, if he's a carpenter, you go with him to go build houses and do what carpenters does. So we used to go with my father. Basically, backstages was our playgrounds, whether it was playing, being with the light guy, the sound guy, backstage, sitting with my dad on stage. That was a norm for us. We had this, I guess, kinship to music and backstages and the whole thing of being around music and performing for people. Key defining moments in Las Vegas, we were fortunate enough to have, of course, my dad. He had the shows, the production shows, as well as the A-list entertainers. But then you had also a lot of incredible lounges going on. So you go to hotels and you would see, Tower of Power in a lounge, Buddy Rich in a lounge. And so you were always being affected by that. Then I started working actually just for fun with bands, doing USO tours before I was 18, as far as, professionally and making money from it. The key defining moment for me would be, I would say one of them, because there's been many in this evolution, was my brother got me the job with Ben Vereen, and he was playing drums. The first job that I did was in Reno Sparks at a place called John Esquaga's Nugget. And I never forget it, because Bertha and Tina were like the elephants that opened the show, or like in between shows. It was Ben Vereen, Marilyn McCoo, and that Bertha and Tina would come out, and we were backstage. That was the first time I played anything that I was doing on my own. My brother was on drums and I was on percussion. We finished the set and I was backstage, and I just remember the feel of what it felt like to be the responsible party of what I had grown up being there with my father, seeing all those years. And I said, I want this. This is for me. And I would say that was like a key defining moment for me to become a professional musician, which I'm still in the evolution of still doing.
Well, it sounds like, to be as dedicated as you all are, you all seem to be thriving on the fact that you're a constant student. That's really, really powerful. That's really powerful. Liliana, yourself, in going down and doing the audition with George Benson? How did that all come about?
I used to come down to Los Angeles. I grew up in the Bay Area, but I would come down to Los Angeles and I would sit in when my dad was playing in town. And then when my dad wasn't in town, his friends would call and be like, come sing with us. So I had started gigging when I was 17, 18. I was still in high school. I knew the music director, David Garfield, and he had reached out to me and he had asked me if I would be up for auditioning for George on vocals. And of course I said yes. Then I had to do a Google search of like, okay, who's this person? What's the music? They asked me to audition on percussion and if I played percussion, and I said yes. But the fact that I didn't know anything, I didn't know anything.
Good for you.
So I basically lied. I text my dad. I was just like, first of all, who's George Benson? Second of all, should I do this? And he goes, just say yes. Just say yes. We're going to figure it out. And my mom's going, just say yes. Just say yes. So I was in school at the time. And what I was doing is it was right around the holidays. I remember because I basically had a month where I was going to school and working my job on campus on the weekdays. And on the weekends, I was driving to my dad's house out in the valley to learn how to shake a shaker. I mean, I could play tambourine in time and I had, some sort of, I had rhythm, but I had no technique. I mean, he had to start from ground one, which is like tones on a conga, how to slap, like what are the tones, how to place your hands. And then to even get into patterns, it was like this super speed of schooling. Like he said, we did in a boot camp. And that's when I started. Those were my first lessons really. And that was since, I was a kid, since before my parents were divorced, that was the first time that we were really playing music together and developing that side of my musicality. Because the singing was already there. But as far as percussion and drums went, I was starting at ground zero.
Well, you have accomplished an incredible amount in relatively a short amount of time. What was it like learning the tunes with George Benson? How did how'd you learn the tunes? How many songs did you have to learn? And what was that first performance like?
Oh my gosh. So his discography is just massive. And so we've never had a set list. And what they had to do is they had to nail him in. Like you can only choose from, let's say 25 songs for her first couple of shows. And then we'll make the song list 50 songs and then it'll go to 100, 150. So what I did is I learned 25 songs and then I learned another 25 songs. And then I just kept adding to the list to where now, because the show is he'll just start playing a song and you jump in and he never calls a tune. You just go. So that was, that's more of like an old school kind of jazz thing. And I was not used to that, but it was also my first time touring. And then to be touring internationally and to be touring with such a legacy artist was, a tailspin. It was kind of the same thing where you get thrown into it and you learn and you play with the greatest musicians on stage and you're the worst out of all of them. And I remember my first gig, Stanley Banks, the bass player, said, "You're either going to sink on this or you're going to swim. You decide." And I told myself, I was like, I'm not sinking. I'm no quitter. I'm in this to win this. So it was basically like I spent about 2 months learning and practicing with my dad. And then I just got thrown out there and then we would have Skype check-ins. But it was just a matter of like, okay, you got your feet wet a little bit, now just go do it. Learning with George, I think he gave me the space and the time knowing that I didn't know what I was doing. He's not a stupid man. So he knew, but the thing is the voice was there. He could see that I had it in me to develop the percussion side. I just needed a little bit of time. And then it turned into, I feel like a little chameleon now.
What a beautiful story. And I know David Garfield and David is a huge fan of yours and you really have some great support from people that are in the industry. And now you're in. You've got all these songs that you know. You understand the legacy of George Benson. And George Benson is so deep. Listen, as a singer, George Benson is phenomenal. But as a guitar player, his roots went back to West Montgomery. When you go back to West Montgomery and you hear West Montgomery play, and you hear what George Benson took from that style of sound, this really is what you all have done as a family. You've taken a little bit from each of you and you've developed your own sound and style, but you come from the roots of this great musical family tree, which is powerful. Really, really very, very powerful. WALFREDO Sr., in the olden days, when you first started out, there was so much work and there were so many clubs going around. How were you able to organize yourself as far as booking dates and knowing where to show up? Did you, were you an organized person in how you did this?
In New York City, there were meetings every week at actually the Roseland Ballroom and Local 802. Guys,
Where the union met, yes.
Yeah, at the union. All the guys met there. And the whole thing was the mountains, Grossinger's in summer, Miami Beach in the winter. So the guys would get together there, the American guys, great drummers, Willie Rodriguez, Tito Puente, and they started picking out, where do you want to go? You want to go? My first gig was at Totem Lodge with my Uncle Emilio's band. I was 15 years old. Okay, I already was playing the bass drum, timbales, and a conga on the side. So that means I lied at the union because you got to be 16 to get into 802. But I got a little pencil, so it went like that. I was told no. So that was my first shot at playing with a band and bass player, all Italians. Bass, Tony on bass, Italian, Angelo on piano. There were not that many Cubans, not that many Puerto Ricans yet arriving for the big deal of the mambo, cha-cha-cha, pachanga, the whole thing. And I was paid $175. That was a lot of money in the 40s.
At that time, that's a lot of money.
So yeah. That was 1940, 47, right after the war. When the war ended, a big thing happened. Big thing. Musically, it was a musical revolution, I think, because people came from Europe listening to things that they never heard too much, like in India, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavian music. And when they came back to New York, they started writing and then started composing like 3/4 jazz. Wow, whoever heard of that? Roy Haynes.
Oh,
Okay, was the first guy I saw at Berlin. So it was different times. There were a lot of good musicians around, like there is now too. It doesn't change. The whole thing is the business, because a lot of young kids today that play the drums, the business situation is, do you play one beat jazz? You have to play dance music, Jewish music. The Jewish community loved Latin music. They loved it. If it wouldn't been for them, we would have died.
Boy, that's a great.
The Italians, the same thing. They approached the Latin music, the mambo, the Palladium ballroom, the places where they would go and dance and take a cha-cha lesson for 50 cents on Broadway.
So the business side of it is really to understand, to be as prepared as you can, to go there and be able to deliver what is asked of you. Danny, how do you work that out? Do you work it out when you go someplace? What kind of preparation do you need to prepare for any gig that you're playing?
First of all, mentally embrace diversity and embrace flexibility in everything, whether it be music, money, life. So if you have that mindset, like for instance, what's going on now, you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
Or else if you're stiff, you're going to have a hard time. And that applies to, when you learn that in music, it's one of the biggest things that we learned from our father was, and especially in being a percussionist drummer that knows all these different styles or plays all these different styles in order to work and be successful in life, you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
So how do I approach it? Every one of them is going to be different. I used to be a lot more rigid. I look back and go, wow, I used to wish, if I could go back, I wish I was more flexible. But now every one of them is completely different. Well, like I said, let's just address monetary.
Yeah.
So sometimes a gig doesn't pay as much as you would like, okay? Or as much as it used to pay in the past, all right? Something as simple as that. Some people go, well, I'm not going to do it. And that's your prerogative. But sometimes you have to be like, for instance, I'll look at it, well, might not pay as much, but I'm going to get some marketing out of it. I'm going to meet somebody that is going to get another gig from, and I'm going to get another gig from that. Some way or another to be creative in order to keep going forward and still work. So I guess, how to approach it. Always be creative, flexible, and embrace flexibility, diversity in everything that you do.
Well, so a part of the organization that you're talking about is really about mental and physical and business-wise. There's a lot that you've got to really kind of put together to be prepared to hit the road.
Absolutely. If you don't, you're going to pay a price. And that price is whether it's you go on stage thinking about, oh my God, I'm being audited. Oh my God, I got to, I'm failing in my relationship, or all these different things will come in the way of your performance. It does. Yeah, so you need to be as organized as possible. So when you hit that stage, you can just zone out and you're right then and there doing what you do best, which you've been training for so many years. But as soon as you're done, now you get off stage, you meet the fans, you go to the bus. I have a checklist of things I do before bed, before I go to sleep that I have to finish, and then set up a list for tomorrow's things. Always, every day.
Well, that really is well said. And it's really amazing because what you're talking about is understanding the importance of discipline, to have that level of self-control. Wally, how do you do it? How do you maintain the pace that you're at? Because every time I see you perform, you're playing great. You're not even on time. You're early all the time. And you're always positive. How do you keep that going?
Well, I wanted to make 2 points that are, I think, really important, which I'm teaching now in my lessons, because I've been teaching during COVID, online and personal at a drum shop. I got to say a little story because it has, I taught it to Liliana. She knows it now. I'm sure Danny knows it, but it came from my dad, and I was 16 years old. I was playing my first job with Debbie Reynolds at the Desert Inn Hotel. I don't know if you remember that. I bought, with my first check, I bought a set of first gum-bop congas, and then I had a feature with Debbie Reynolds playing bongos, and then after that, I went back with the band, and really I didn't have a lot to do. But I got bored, and I was young, a lot of energy, my hands were and I was overplaying and playing where I shouldn't have been. And one time my dad, on a 8-bar break or something like that, he turned around and said, "Hey, right now, you play what you need to play. When you get your band, you play whatever you want to play." So that phrase, I told the guys with Chicago on the bus when we were on tour, and they were saying, "Well, we should do this and lead this, and the management this and this and that." And I said, and even Jason Schaeff and Tristan Bowden and everybody, and Keith Howland, even to this day, 2021, they say, "Wally, you play what you need to play, and when you get your band, then you play whatever you want to play." So with that, it says a lot of words. But on the organizational skills, I realized that as a drummer, mostly a drummer, because percussion, sometimes you rely on the drummer to count, or if there's a loop or whatever. But there's 3 things that I think sums it up for me in my professional career, and that is tempos, styles, and groove. So back there, just like Danny was saying, I got a file of tons of pages with Steve Winwood, Chicago, Robbie Robertson, every gig. In fact, tomorrow I'm rehearsing with a local band, so we're going to do 20 songs. They all have a tempo marking. So I actually go to the songs, nudge down the tempo. When we come to the rehearsal, if they say, "Man, let's do this song," and they're, whether Danny's with Zach Brown or I'm with Chicago, Robert Lamb starts the piano. I said, "Wow, that was great. It felt great." The first thing I need to know is what tempo was that, because that's what I'm going to mark on the gig when I count it off, because they liked it. Styles, diversity, and a groove that feels good, which I'm going to leave you with this little thing that I learned when I arrived in LA, just like all of us. I arrived new, and I had my friend Carlos Vega said, "Hey man, Jeff Porcaro's playing at the Baked Potato." And that was 1980. I drove to the Baked Potato. I saw Jeff Porcaro playing with, I think, a crazy rock band. And outside, he was drying his hair. And Carlos Vega says, hey, Jeff, this is my friend Wally. He just moved in from Las Vegas to LA. So Jeff was kind of like probably feeling sorry for me. And he was drying his hair and he goes, from Las Vegas, huh? And then he gave me the most important unsolicited advice that I've actually followed up until now. He said, man, what can I tell you? All these people around here, meaning in LA, producers, artists, songwriters, engineers, contractors, all they want for you is for you to play a groovy beat so they can lay it on top. That's all. And then he walked away. So I went like, oh, okay. So I basically realized that is when you play with an artist, it's not about what you're doing on the drums. It's actually how they feel. So you're there to make their music feel good, to give them what they want, their pain. If they want a little cymbal bell and a snare drum on one and the end of 4, that's what they're going to get.
Yeah.
And so that's been my motto when I go to each job. When I'm here in my studio with this drum set on top, I overplay or practice and play whatever the hell I want to play. When I'm in somebody else's time, it's about them, not about me. So basically, that's where I take my philosophy, and I got all the lists. Now we're going to start rehearsals with Chicago the 20th. You better believe I have all the tempos down. The original record tempo, the record tempos, the tempos that we've been doing live. We don't just start playing. It's got to be everything locked. Yeah. So I'm very, very educational. You know, aside from the equipment, the technique, and the know how to play your acts, now is about live past the cymbals, not before the cymbals. So that's my philosophy.
So it sounds like when you're playing with Chicago, the set is to completely organize. You know exactly what you're going to play beforehand.
Yes. Chicago, there's many, like Danny was saying, every artist is different and you cannot come in with a formula. So Chicago is very organized. They planned their set really well. So did Lindsey Buckingham. He was like that. And so was Steve Winwood. Santana, no. Santana's more like George Benson, like what Liliana was saying. Santana will start playing and you're supposed to know that song and start playing it. So many artists, they're all different.
Well, what a great understanding of how this business runs. Liliana, when George Benson goes up there and starts playing, you've got to be on the mark. You've got to know where he's going. You've got to have complete large ears. How did you adapt to this? I mean, you had to kind of get into that groove.
It took me a minute. It also felt natural. And as far as it's also a part of the organization is doing your homework before the gig, so you don't have to worry about what's going on while you're performing. So I think that's definitely a part of all of that. And like Dad said, play what you need to play. I was singing with George one time and kind of the same thing is just I really wanted to vocally stretch. I mean, my first gig with George Benson, I was watching side stage Natalie Cole. I mean, I am side stage with Natalie Cole and I am just like, I'm in over my head. I don't know what I'm doing. So when you're surrounded by such talent, you kind of want to like show, I could do this too, or like I could keep up. And I remember before COVID, because it really wasn't that long ago, but I just wanted to stretch my voice. And I was singing with him and he looks at me and he's like, no, just sing the song. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm singing the song. He's like, no, just sing it straight. No ad lib, don't add your own thing. The song is about the lyrics. It's not about, you know, vocal acrobats. And it could be the same thing can be said with drums. It's not about doing whatever it is you want. And it comes down to the same thing is people want to hear the story and they want to hear the lyrics, and simplicity is something that I've definitely learned playing with George, that simplicity goes a long way.
Well, that is a great lesson to learn for sure. Let me ask this question. I'll start with Liliana. Social media, how do you deal with social media? Does that assist you in how you kind of run your business? Are you on top of social media?
Yes and no. Actually, my dad gets on me sometimes like, you need to post more. You need to post what you're doing. And I'm like, but I don't want to post more. It's this weird push and pull relationship that I have with it, because I have seen some of my friends get work based off of what they post on social media, not necessarily what's on their resume or having someone seen them play live. But if they're playing on social media, I've seen friends get hired for tours in that way. And I know myself, most of my work is on percussion these days. And I know that's because I don't market myself as a vocalist, which is on me. One of my mentors back at USC said this is, you are your biggest advocate. You are your own microphone. Nobody's going to advocate for you more than you advocate for yourself. So if you're not getting the work that you want to be getting, and if you're not seeing the results that you want to be seeing, that's on you. And I think social media is a great tool to allow you to see some of those results, because it's a huge platform of getting your name out there and getting people to see you and whatever it is. Like Danny was saying, when you take a gig, it's an amazing way to market yourself, to create new fans off of someone else's fans. I mean, it's a really big tool, but I'm not good about posting on social media, but I'm getting better.
Good for you. Danny, how do you handle social media?
First of all, it's such an incredible platform to be able to have and to access. Like, we never had that in growing up. So, yeah. I mean, we're very fortunate to have it, to be able to reach so many people at one time. I guess it all depends on the different individual. I don't really use it for marketing when it comes to marketing and getting jobs, even though I'm sure somehow or another it affects it. It helps me to know that I can somehow or another affect, whether it's one individual or thousands, in a positive way. So I'm always like, I'm very careful as to what I post, but with that mindset is that I need to know that at the end of the night, you know, there's certain things I'm trying to make just this world a little bit better. And just because of events that happen in my life, that's where I'm at. So the social media kind of helps me to do that. So I make sure that whether it's music, I'll give you an example. So a lot of my fans are from the Zac Brown band world. So they're not necessarily fans of jazz or even though I have jazz fans, drummers for that matter. I do post some of that, but I'm very careful how I introduce it to the post and to my social media platform, because I don't want to oversaturate or push nothing upon anybody. But at the same time, you never know if someone might go in and go, they, you know, see a post from me. This is how I grew up with my mom playing this. And I hope you enjoy this. And it'll be like, let's say something Latin. And all of a sudden I'll get like comments from people that I know are country music fans, and I say, I really love that. And I'm like, okay, there's integration through diversity. So I feel somehow or another I'm getting to some folks in a positive way. And I'm always very, very careful what I post as far as the verbiage, because I'm very conscientious about things being misinterpreted or hurting somebody. I do my best in trying to be creative, be entertainment, obviously, be myself at the same time, but know that I'm possibly causing someone to make a right or left turn in life because of my post.
It seems you really understand the responsibility of the effects of social media. Well, Wally, how do you handle social media? I know you're traveling and you're really good. I see you all over the place. How do you deal with that?
Like my dad was saying, he lived like an amazing era. And in the 60s in Puerto Rico, everything was live music, play in the streets, play and see a band. Even in the 70s in Las Vegas, everything was live. You know, the lounges, the showrooms, this and that. But right now, we're living in different times, but I think we're living in amazing times, because I had no idea what these guys, when I put the needle down on my turntable, looked like. I had no idea what Charlie Watts looked like, Steve Gadd looked like. I didn't know who was black, white, Italian. I didn't know. Now you go to YouTube, and yesterday, by the way, I told you I'm going to rehearse tomorrow like 20 songs, and they were all from YouTube. I not only got the original album version, all the versions, notched the tempo, and I got 20 songs all on YouTube right there. And so now it comes to now you have to, like Liliana was saying, people not only like the musical part of you, but they want to know who is behind the drums as a person, your story. So on Facebook, I usually are more all about music. On Instagram, I mix it. And on the story section, every day, hey, I drank this kind of coffee. And then I put a new Chicago thing. Today I announced, for example, like I just finished teaching Javier Bardem, the actor, for the new movie Being the Ricardos. So I posted that today, and people want to know everything, you know. and so basically, it was I had a teaching lesson that came from social media. The contractor for the movie saw me teaching and contacted me. If it wasn't for social media, she wouldn't know who Wally is. So, and a lot of my students here in Cincinnati and Kentucky all came because I use social media as Chicago's not touring. I'm here. If you're living in the Cincinnati area, so I got now about 15 students, and then also recording back there with this drum set. This is my recording studio, and I've been cutting tracks right here. And I've learned through social media, YouTube, how to record with Logic, what microphones to use. I have to spend a lot of time from my drums and percussion, learning software, learning how to be good at posting and video and music together so it doesn't overlap. And it's a growing thing. I see some drummers that have 250,000 followers. So what I tell to my students, for example, one of the gigs that I cannot do in July, August, I've been working with Dudley Taft, guitarist here in Cincinnati, rock, blues guy. And I couldn't do any of the gigs because I'm going to go on the road with Chicago. I told a bunch of my students, audition. I recommended them. So I said to them, how does Dudley Taft know about you? What can I send him? If you don't have social media, a website, a place where he can see you play, how am I going to explain it to him? Hey, he's good. No, I says, hey, Dudley, check this guy on social media. And one of my students that had a lot of posts playing different styles got the gig.
WALFREDO Sr., you go back to a time where, forget about social media, there weren't even computers at that time. Right. So you have seen the change and development. How have you adapted with all of this?
Right now, with the virus and staying home, I've been quarantined for about a year. I realized that I wanted to make a trip. So I took my cell phones and got in contact with people, and they get in contact with me from Argentina, from Brazil, from Peru. I get guys calling me from Spain. They all want to know how it was, who was your teacher. You know, there's a world outside that's not only the United States. And there are many, 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 many drummers, talented, that are incredible. I've been doing interviews with the Argentinian drummer he's from Uruguay, Quintino Cinelli. Italian name, Quintino. I did 3 interviews. I did another interview with Fidel Morales from Puerto Rico. He's the teacher at the Conservatory of Puerto Rico. So the whole thing is they want to know how was it in Cuba in the 30s and 40s and 50s, which is very similar. Everybody has a similar story, you know. I keep in contact with all my Horacio Hernandez, El Negro, who I say is my son. Every day he calls me or he texts me, you know. So I keep in contact with Cuba first because I think there's a lot of talent there. The thing in music is that I see all these drummers, they're so fantastic when they play, and they have a style of musicality from the folklore of their country into the drums. Each of us play a different jazz form. It's the word jazz is also Uruguayan jazz, Brazilian jazz, Argentinian jazz, the Piazzolas, the sons of the famous Argentinian composer Piazzolla. Their feel is different. It doesn't have to be tu chunka tu chunka tu chunka tu. You know, it could be tu 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 tu. They kind of mix their feel to the drum set, and they sound different. Now they all want to play. They all want to play. It's like baseball. They all want to play American jazz. But Chico Farrell, famous Cuban arranger, composer, he said one time when I was very young, he said, "We all have our jazz. Every country has his jazz."
So it turns out that all of this incredible history that you have, that you're able to use social media and texting and computers and emails to really globally connect this for everyone to experience this. This really is the magical time that we're living in right now. This really is unbelievable. Let me ask a question in closing. I want each of you to kind of give an offering to this next generation that's listening. I'm going to start with you, Liliana, because you're the youngest. About this next generation, what can you offer to them that you have experienced at your age that's allowing you to live your passion and be as successful as you are? What's your ingredient?
I think to tag on to what Danny was saying, I think flexibility for sure. I think offering a good vibe. The thing is that a lot of people forget is half of the time you're just hanging out and you're with other people, and it's about being able to spend time with other people and communicate well and be open to other people's opinions, not be defensive, and really just have an open mind to working with other people. I think bringing a smile, my dad always reminds me, he's just like, always bring a smile to the stage, whether you're talking with people, whether you're interacting. Because I think sometimes with me, I'm thinking so much about what it is that I'm doing, and I'm thinking about the music that I forget it's also part of the performance as people are visually watching you. So as much as people are listening to you, it's also a visual representation. So smile, interact, be positive, have good work ethic, have discipline, use social media, represent yourself, and just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and be open to possibilities. And yeah.
Danny, what would you say in closing for this next generation, for them to have the preparation for them to live their passion?
Compliment the meal. You're not the only cook. So the meal could be your household, the band, piece of music, a recording, a project, whatever it might be. So compliment the meal by respecting everybody, listening to everybody, keeping each other, like not thinking that you're better than anybody, because it's subjective, obviously, complimenting, but you have to be sensitive to everybody else there, whether, like I said, in your household, say right now, right in this group, we're all going to cook Thanksgiving dinner. Wally Jr., you take care of the turkey. Dad, you take care of the dessert. I'll take care of the appetizers. We all have to be conscientious of each other, what we're doing, and compliment each other, build each other up. And if you take that mindset, I think you could go to sleep every night knowing that you're not only doing a good job in your music, in your work, but in your life.
Wally, what would you say to this next generation?
A lot of the youth spends a lot of time playing in YouTube with drumless tracks. And so when you're in your studio, there's a danger of practicing and you take all the space. So I'm here in my room and I can play whatever and all the space is mine. But when you have to share it with an artist, a band, you have to share the space. And one line that I took from Steve Gadd, after you spend all this time learning your drum set, like in your studio, the skills, the technique, the rudiments of this, the grooves, the time signatures, remember there's live past the cymbals.
Yeah.
Now you're here in this real estate, and it's not about this anymore. It's about, hey, what do you need? Oh, there's a singer stepping to the mic. Shh, what do you have to say? Hey, that was a great line. Hey, so basically 50% listening and 50% what you're doing. And if you, young people, like Liliana said, go with a great attitude, a positive attitude, you're there to be a team player, not just about me. It's about joining a team player and having the project be successful, and not about, hey, did I shine on this tune? Can you see my Sabian cymbals? It's not about that. So basically, I use the drums to create music. I don't use music to create drumming. So basically, you do that in your studio. I put a tune and I can play a lot of things. But when it comes to play the music, it's about the ingredients, like Danny was saying, what ingredients am I going to add? Sometimes the meal is cooked, so just take a rest. But, sometimes it's just about what can I add to this project and be musical. And that's, you'll be a working drummer, a working musician.
Well, WALFREDO Sr., what would you say to this next generation, just in short closing, that could give them the inspiration for them to continue and follow their passion?
First thing I want to say is that I'm very proud to have such a beautiful family. They have done what some things that they follow me, but they have their own thing, and that's what I like. Liliana, she's amazing. I love her. She has her thing. My sons have gone their way. Study, practice, listen, and be yourself. You use this. Use your mind. But the best thing is to be yourself. Create. In the last 20, 30 years, there have been different styles of drumming. Everything changes every day. Drummers change. What's jazz? What's Cuban music? What's Puerto Rican music? What is that? How do you play that? So try to learn everything you can, because when you go into the studio, you don't know when you're going to be asked to play all that. Keep going. Don't stop. Do 20 push-ups a day, like I do. Okay? That's what I wish for a young person. Use your brains.
Wait, there's no way I'm doing 20 push-ups, but I understand what you're saying. You want to stay in physical condition.
I'm going to be 88 in June 16.
I'm going to be 30.
88.
That is fantastic.
88. Come to my birthday party.
Liliana, you're going to be 30, but I got to go back. You all have answered that question absolutely beautifully well. But if I had to summarize what I'm hearing, I got to go back to what Liliana said. Just say yes. Be prepared and just say yes. Go for it. This is really what I see the Reyes family in the message of what you have all encountered. Just believe in yourself and go for it 110%. You all have done that. You all continue to do that. WALFREDO Sr., Wally, Danny, and of course, Liliana. You all have been fantastic. I thank you so much for spending time with us. The Artist Series at a Distance, you all have been fantastic. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing you all at some point on the road traveling. Thanks so much. Dom Famularo here, the Sessions panel. This is so exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Click the subscribe button to be a part of what we're doing. The views help us tremendously. All of your comments, we read them and react to them. This is incredible. The support you're giving us is great. The Sessions panel. We'll see you real soon.